Well, happy Friday to you. We're in the book of Genesis in chapter 3. We looked at the temptation in verses 1 through 5. There are three types: lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Eve was tempted in all three ways, just as Jesus, when he was taken out into the wilderness by Satan, was tempted in the same three ways. So today are we tempted in the same three ways. Think about any temptation that you could face, and it will fall into one of those three categories. And then there's the disobedience in verses 6 and 7. Even though Adam and Eve clearly knew there was one rule, and only one rule in all of the garden, they had to disobey God. They took their free will and willfully disobeyed God. Adam gave up his headship. He wound up not protecting his wife as he should, and there was consequences for that. And then there was the blame game, verses 8 through 13. This woman that you gave me, God got blamed. The woman got blamed. And then the woman turned around and blames the serpent for deceiving her. And as always is the case when more than one person's involved in something, it's always the other guy's fault. And we understand that blame game only too well. And then we certainly understand that there's consequences to sin. And we start with the last one, which is the serpent, and work our way down through. But the serpent is told that he is cursed, that he'll eat the dust of the ground for the rest of his life, that even though he may bruise the heel of Jesus, eventually his head will be crushed by Jesus. Jesus will pay the price for sin and ultimately defeat Satan here on earth, and Satan will be gone once and for all. But there's another punishment that's going to be given out, and we're going to look at that verses 16 through 19, because sin always has a consequence. There's always a price to be paid. Just as in divorce nobody wins, the same thing is true in sin. Nobody wins, and everyone is going to pay a price, either now or hereafter. But there's always a price for sin, and we need to remember that. And so let's take a look at verses 16 through 19. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children, yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Then to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying you shall not eat from it, cursed is the ground because of you, and toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So there you have it, the cost of sin. And you see, it's very clear that God took Eve and gave her a terrible price. Is going to greatly multiply her pain in childbirth, yet she'd have a desire for her husband. She'd want to have relations with him, and that he would be the head of the household. It's all because she ate the fruit, disobeyed God, showed that she couldn't handle the responsibility that he gave her to keep his commandment. Man too was going to pay a price. You see that in verse 17. He listened to his wife. He disobeyed the command, and he also yielded his headship. He also yielded his protection that he was supposed to give to his wife as a perfect helpmate. And as a result, the ground was cursed all of the days of his life. Weeds and thistles and thorns would grow, and it would be hard to keep up the garden. Every time I cut the grass, every time I weed the garden, I curse Adam. No, I'm not kidding. I'm kidding about cursing Adam. I do fuss about having to do those things, but he told us that it would never be easy again to tend the garden, that there was a price for the sin that man had committed, price for the sin that the woman had committed. And he said it was going to be difficult all of the days of their life, and they would only eat by the sweat of their brow till they returned to the earth. I sure hope that that fruit on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was good, because that was a terrible price. If you've ever been in a labor and delivery room, if you ever talked to a woman who bore a child, they'll tell you it wasn't easy. They say this like having a kidney stone, and I've had one of those. And if that's what it's like, this world wouldn't be very heavily populated on account of me if I had to go through that pain. Taking care of a garden, keeping the thistles and the thorns out of it, it's a hard job. It seems like the plants die and the weeds thrive. Down in our garden in our other house, we have kind of a vine that's a mint vine. It has wonderful mint leaves that are really nice and tea, but I can't kill that vine. No matter how hard I try to confine it to just a little pot, somehow it just keeps coming up in the garden, and no matter how many times we try to get it pulled out by the roots, it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. Yes, by the sweat of our brow, we'll eat. No longer would gardening be fun. Gardening would be toil, sweat of the brow. Sure hope that fruit was good. For those few minutes of pleasure that they had in eating that fruit, there would be a lifetime of payment, the penalty of sin. And today the same thing is true. We may have a few minutes of pleasure. Sin may seem very enticing and very enjoyable, but there's a price to pay for sin. And sometimes that price is so much greater than the few minutes of pleasure that we might get from it. That's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.